Good afternoon, everyone. Hope you're all doing well. Oh, just don't mind me knocking all stuff off. Hang on. There we go. If you're there, will you just let me know that you can hear me all right, so I get the volume levels right? We shall get started very shortly. There we go. Cool. Will you just let me know if you can hear me right, Lakshay? Cool. Super duper. Right, so what we're going to do today is I am going to do a little bit of work on around browser rendering because I've been playing with this a little bit recently, right? That's pretty much how I decide how I'm going to do things. So what I've been working on is using Scrapey Playwright, but actually using something like Patchwright underneath, so we can actually, avoid the telltale giveaways from the general Scrapey Playwright. So I'm going to share my screen. Let me get my code editor up, and we will, start to work through this. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to sort of work through a little kind of a demo project, and we're going to use a few different tools, and we'll talk about it as we go. And hopefully should be kind of useful for you guys to see what I'm doing and hopefully understand why I'm doing it. And we can move on from there. So there's a few more people joining. So for the people that have just jumped in, we're going to do a bit of browser rendering today, but it's going to be a little bit different. We're going to be using Scrapey Playwright, and then moving over to looking at using Patchwright as well. So we'll talk about that as we go. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm actually going to clone in my base spider repo. This is the one that I've been using for my demos. It just basically saves me a load of effort creating spiders on the go. So all it is pretty straightforward spider. It uses Scrapey, it uses Scrapey Poet, and it also just has it's kind of like got my test type built into it. So it's pretty straightforward, very, very easy. I'll have a link to this somewhere. I haven't quite finalized everything, but it'll be out there available at some point for you guys to use as well. So let's create a virtual environment. Let's activate it. And then we will do UV, what's it called? Sync locked. So this is going to install everything from the repo that we've got going on here. So just a quick run through this. This is going to be like a simple like e-commerce spider type thing. I'm going to use my test site, and it's going to utilize these items here. We're going to zip through some pages. So I'm going to take 2 seconds to just run through and create this. And then we're going to add in Scrapey Playwright. We'll talk about that. And then we'll add in how you might want to use a more like web scraping focused browser, and how you can utilize those into Scrapey. But then I've got an example there for you too. So I'm going to go ahead, and I'm actually going to start with the VS Code extension. This is what I demoed live in Dublin and in Austin. This is our like web scraping extension for Scrapey projects. And we can see, it's over here. There'll be a link for it You can find it on the it's called Web Scraping Copilot. You can find it on the VS Code Marketplace. You can just install it, give it a go, let us know how you get on. I'm not going to go into the detail on it here. It's not really about that, but I am going to be using it. So this is my model that I've been using at the moment. Claude Haiku 4.5 worked pretty well. So let's, I just need to grab I know you can't see my my browser. It's not, doesn't matter. I'm just grabbing a URL. So create a page object for the item. Let me just do this product item using the sample URL. Like so. I'm just going to let it do this, and we're just going to zip through this real quick. This is basically just going to write the parsing code for me, because it's going to be the same regardless whether it was, oh, don't open that one. Whether it's, like where the data is coming from. So you can see it's creating my page object here, and it's just going to work out extracting the data. Here's the fixture that it creates. This is the HTML for the page that it's downloaded through my Scrapy project, expected output, etc., etc. There'll be a newsletter coming out about this in a couple of days, maybe tomorrow or Friday. So if you're not signed up to our community newsletter, make sure you do. You'll see all the cool stuff that we've been working on. Keep up to date. So that'd be great. And obviously, if you're not in the community, jump over to Discord. Make sure you are. Right. So we do have our page object filled in. The AI did all of this for us. I used to use Gemini 2.5 Pro for this, but this Claude Haiku 4.5 has been very, very good. So let me just do one more, because we have the list pages to do. So let's say create another page object. Oh, wow, can't type. Let's move this out so you guys can probably see it a bit easier. For list item using the sample URL, and I know the URL to this is just this. This is just one of my test sites. So again, same deal. We'll just get this through, and I'll show you that this project is working, and then we'll talk about the browser aspect of it. Should you be, working through it using a browser for your scraping needs? It happens sometimes, unfortunately. As much as I really rather not, it is, one of those things that does happen. Make sure that that's in there. There we go. Cool. So just figuring out what should put in here. We should have another page object, which we do. I'll just let this run through. So whilst this is just finishing up, we know that in some cases we do need to use a browser for web scraping. These cases are usually either you need to render a JavaScript page to get the data, or you need to perform some other JavaScript task, like the JavaScript challenges that websites give you, that your browser will need to work on and pass, that will give you that cookie. So if you've ever scraped a website that has one of the major anti-bot vendors on it, and you look at the requests as you go through, you'll see that there is a cookie attached to those, and that cookie is very important. That's like your session, which means you've passed the test, the JavaScript test, and you're allowed through. Now, what a lot of people do when they're scraping at scale is that they'll use a browser to generate that cookie and then pass it off with all the subsequent requests in, and not have to use the browser for all of them. What people also do is they can create those cookies en masse and store them, which is a really cool thing, which is what I want to expand into at some point. But in this video, what I'm going to show you is the first part of this. So a lot of people, when they're talking about using a browser to scrape within Python, they'll mention Playwright. But the problem with Playwright is that it unfortunately has a lot of telltale giveaways that are very, very easy for websites to spot with the JavaScript test and just block you straight away. And that is a big problem. But what we can do is we can actually utilize some of the open source browsers that have been created that work with Playwright, that will then give us a better chance to not to pass those JavaScript tests and not have to worry. So I've got this, should be done now. So I'm just going to check that this works. I think it's called products. This is, oh, okay. It's mixing up. We don't need this. We can just return. I don't need all of this. Don't need a relative URL. Don't need to join. There we go. Okay, so it's starting to zip through, and we can see it's scraping data. Right. This is all well and good. This is fine. We know that this works. I'm glad that it works this time, because when I was demoing in Dublin, it didn't work. I've done this hundreds of times, and the time that I do it on stage in front of 100 or so people, I get some errors that I don't want to sit there and debug. So that was our kind of like real quick web scraping Copilot blast through. Now we have a working spider. But let's say, for example, something's changed, or we weren't able to do this because we needed to use a browser. Well, we can absolutely do that, and I'm going to set this up to Scrapy Playwright. So at the moment, I'm going to do UV add Scrapy Playwright, and I'm going to add this to my environment, and then we should have Playwright install, and we do. This is actually going to install all 3 browsers. We'll just install Chrome. Yeah. I think that worked. Did I have that? I might have had it installed already. Actually, let's double check. So let's get rid of everything. Playwright, remove all. No, uninstall. One of those ones. Cool. So now we'll do Playwright install Chromium. Perfect. So this is going to install like the base level Playwright Chromium for us. We now have to go and add some things into our settings. So this is my standard settings I've got here. You can see I've got the Zeit API one, which is commented out at the moment. That's the easy way to do all of this. Just use the Zeit API and let it kind of do all of this for you, does all the browser rendering. But if we want to do it ourselves, we can absolutely do that. So down here, I'm going to pop over. Now, I'm not sharing this part of my screen just because I was messing around earlier, but I'm just going to Scrapy Playwright GitHub. I'm just going to grab, you'll see when I paste it in. So there's download handlers that need to go in here like this. And we don't need that one because that's now default within Scrapy. I'm also going to put this in, but we're going to change this to Chromium, and we might use this as a little test a little bit later on. Launch options, we want the timeout. What's it called? Timeout, 60-second timeout. It's a bit long. Let's do a 30-second timeout. And I think that should probably be it for the moment. Just double checking. Oh yeah, we'll do. We're going to add in some context, and I'll explain this in a minute as well. So we'll do max context of 4 at the moment. Context is essentially like separate browser instances that have their own, cookies and everything like that. It can be quite useful to use, especially when you're handling, different things that are going on. Worth keeping in mind. Also, what's worth keeping in mind is concurrency. So this is going to directly affect our concurrency in a roundabout way, but our concurrency is still governed by our Scrapy settings. So that's one thing that we need to keep in mind. Now what we need to do is we need to make sure that we're going to use Playwright, the Playwright download handler for everything. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to come over to middlewares. I'm going to create a middleware to do this. Now you can, it's basically you just need to add in a meta to every Scrapy request. But to do that globally, I'm just going to create a middleware. So we'll just have this as browser rendering middleware. And we just need, that's way too involved. We don't need all of that. So we'll just say process request. Yeah, that's it. So let's enable this middleware in our settings up here. Download a middleware, I think. Yep, we don't need this one. Okay, let's format that a bit better. Right. So this is now should use Playwright for every request that it goes through. So I'm going to clear out of this. I'm just going to double check my settings one more time, and I've got headless is true. So let's run Scrapey Call products again. Oh, not like that. Wrong name. And we'll see what we get. So we should have, yeah, we can see we've got launching browser Chromium. Now it's headless, so obviously we're not going to see it. Now, unfortunately with headless, that it does mean it's a bit more of a giveaway of, yeah, it's easier to spot. It's not useless by any means of the word, but it's not as stealthy, right? So we can see it's still pretty quick because this is my test site, but although it's not local, this is running on a VPS server, so you know it's not just local, so it's super quick. This is generally quite quick, but obviously the pages are very light, and the example is tailored to carry that out. So what I've got here is we should be able to see somewhere in our here. Oh yeah, Playwright. Look at me right here. So we got Playwright context count, browser count, page count, etc., etc. So this all worked very well. So this did happen. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to change this to false. And I'm going to run this, and then I'm going to change my, just make sure this works, and I'm going to change my, I'm going to share my whole screen so you can see what it's doing. Yeah, it's working fine. Let me try and stop this. Cool. Okay. Bear with me. To close a load of stuff. This is the problem. Right. Okay, so what happens now when I run this is you're going to see that the browser is going to come up. You should be able to see that. You can see that we've got all these pages popping up, and that's because it's utilizing the concurrency. Now, if you had multiple contexts, you could have multiple versions of this, and you could then have more kind of more concurrency. It's not quite really the same. I don't fully understand how it links together, but I know that contexts are separated like by cookies and stuff like that. So you can see the browser was popping up there, and we had multiple tabs opening up in Chrome, and that's with the default kind of settings, right? Now, generally speaking, this will get you some of the way. Okay, this will get you some of the way there, but what we really want is to be able to use something that's a bit more stealthy. So I was using this, and let me make this a bit bigger so you can see. This is going to do very well. Now, there's two options, one of which I found more successful than the other. But there are two kind of, what's the right word that I'm looking for? There are two like stealth kind of browsers that I've been successfully using. One is called CamoFox, which is kind of like the default one that a lot of people started to use. But the downside of CamoFox is that it's hasn't been maintained because the maintainer and the owner has unfortunately been in hospital for quite a long time. And if you were to go to the CamoFox website, which I'll show you in just a minute, that will explain that to you, which is, you know, I hope the guy gets better soon, because it has been revolutionary in the browser space. And the other one is, which also works quite well, is PatchRight. So if I show you these, and just share my screen again. You'll kind of get the idea. Now, if you haven't used these before, this is what they are. So CamoFox is built on Playwright, Playwright and Firefox. It's really quite cool, and this is also a great feature if you're interested in, you want to mess around with this remote server. And the other one is PatchRight, which basically removes the patches. It patches the giveaway telltale sign. So this will get you to a decent point. So we're going to use PatchRight. So what we want to do is we want to actually not use the default Playwright browser, and we want to use PatchRight to start with. So let me come back and just share the right screen, share my window, and we can go ahead and get on with this now. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to remove, again, we'll do Playwright, was it uninstall? Yeah, cool. So we've removed all of our browsers. So if we were to try and crawl now, we're going to get this Playwright install, right? So we don't have the Playwright browser installed. But what we can do is we can do uv add patchwright, and then I think it's patchwright install, I think. Yeah, patchwright install Chromium. So because patchwright is built on Playwright, same thing, same kind of word, by removing the Playwright browsers and adding in the patchwright browser means that at that browser level, the one that we're now controlling through the Playwright API is one that has been patched to a certain degree to remove those telltale signs, which is going to give us better chance to get through any of the protection, the bot stuff that is out there online. And this, I feel like, should be out there a bit more, because I know that in a lot of cases, when you're still learning how to scrape data and you're trying to get up to it and you come across a site which is either heavily protected and needs some kind of JavaScript test or JavaScript rendering to actually access the data, the default is to go to Playwright, but you do struggle with the bands, etc., etc. So now that I've got this installed, this should just work, right? Because Playwright's still going to find the Chromium browser. We've got it set here, which is why I put that in here. So let's have this Scrapy crawl products. We can see launching browser, and it's opened. You can't see it at the moment, but it is indeed open and running through. Now, I know this is on a test site, but this is about the theory and about the understanding and how you can do this. So what I would suggest is that if you're at that point now where you are trying to work with a browser and you're actively trying to, get those cookies created or like understand how the browser is going to work and beat the JavaScript tests that happen, being able to put that patched browser into your Scrapy projects or whatever projects is going to be kind of necessity for you. Now, it's very simple to do. You can just install Playwright, but don't install their browser, and then just install the patchwright browser. And that's going to give you a bit of a leg up in the scraping world. And I know you couldn't see the browser was open there, but this was super quick. Obviously, test site, blah, 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 very, very lightweight. So there's another cool thing that I want to show you that we can do with the Playwright browser, the Playwright's Scrapy Playwright rather, is one of these things is here. I'm just going to copy this over from the documentation. Is that we can do this abort request. Now, this is like a Playwright thing. It will block certain requests when the browser loads up. So, for example, we want to block all images. In this case, it's only going to block JPEG images. But what that means is, A, your browser is going to be quicker to load pages, and B, if you are using a proxy or a solution like that, it's also going to reduce the amount of traffic that you use because we're not downloading the images. Now, this resource could be anything. You can tailor this to block scripts. You can tailor it to block any kind of request. And if you go to the Playwright documentation, you'll find what they're all called. Probably dumping this in your Scrapy project settings is probably not the best way to do that. You would have that somewhere else and then import it in. But this is just one. I'm going to show you how it works here. So that's that there. So one more thing that we want to do is we're going to try to use. I wanted to try and use CamoFox, but it wasn't really working for me earlier. But the principle is the same, except you use the Firefox browser. There are a couple of weird twists and turns that you need to do. What I'm going to try is, let me see if I can get my other project up. So I had it kind of working, and this is kind of reason why I kind of went back to the Chromium one, because I couldn't quite, I think it's a Firefox thing, it couldn't quite get through properly. Let me just see, I'm just going to try and open up my other project. Was it this one? Yeah, cool. Okay. Let's come into here and we'll open up this project, which is very, very similar. If I come over to my settings here, scroll down, I need a new terminal, please. Here's the abort requests. Here was I was messing around with the the context and this and whatnot. So I'm going to activate my virtual environment. This is just a new project, and I'm going to do UV run. Now this is I showed you the CamoFox server earlier. And I'm going to show you this. I'm not sure this is going to work because I've had a few issues with this, but this is another way that you can connect using Playwright. So if you have, maybe you've built your own browser, or you have something else that will run a browser for you that you can connect over WebSocket, you can get this, and you can see I've got this WebSocket localhost/extract. This is the CamoFox one. What we can actually do is we can add this in here, so we can have the Playwright connect URL, and that's set it to this. Now this is different to CDP. CDP is Chrome Dev Tools Protocol, or Chrome Dev Protocol, whichever, that one. Now, if it's a Chromium browser, you can connect over CDP, but that isn't as stealthy because I think there's some giveaway signs there. However, that is a viable option if your connection method works that way. So what I'm trying to show is just how, the Playwright API is separate to just the Playwright browser, and we can mix and match the browser underneath if we need to by connecting to various different ways. So I need to change this to Firefox because this is a Firefox-based browser. I've got headless as false. I've got the abort request. I'm going to remove this for the moment just in case this was causing my issue earlier. Now, one other problem that I had was I actually needed to have this process request header set to none. This was causing me issues connecting over that WebSocket as well. So let's go ahead and let's just activate this. We'll try this again. I've been trying to get this to work properly, but I've been struggling a little bit. You see we're saying connecting to remote Playwright. Okay, it's kind of working. Oh, it is working. Right, perfect. So here we can see, connecting to remote Playwright. So before we had connecting to browser, but this is connecting remotely. So this could be anywhere, this WebSocket. This is the problem I had. It takes too long to try and load the page up, and it kind of hangs. Now, I'm not sure what the issue of this was. I will fix it and try and figure out so I can kind of share it back. But if you had a remote browser that you wanted to connect to, this would be how you would do it within see, it times out. Yeah, that's the issue. This would be how you do it within Scrapy. So the Scrapy Playwright sort of setting is extremely very powerful and is very, very useful to use. Having said all of that, if you don't want to mess around with browsers, it's very easy to do this with the Zeit API as well. And that is as simple as adding in the setting here, getting your Zeit API account, having this here, and then sending your meta to render with every request as well. And that will then, the Zeit API will render it for you. We'll put some information, maybe Laksha, you could link the documentation for that in the chat somewhere, or somewhere we can show people that we can do the rendering. I know we've got content on it already, but it's one very, very easy way to not have to worry about managing your browsers, because this is all well and good, but when you have to do lots and lots of browser rendering, it does become a bit of a pain, and it does take a lot of resources and a bit of time as well. So I'm going to call it there. This has been great. I think I've been going for just about 25 minutes-ish, half an hour. So that's going to do for this one. I really just wanted to show you how you can easily connect up different browsers underneath for Scrapy Playwright. And I would recommend that if you are using Scrapy Playwright, that you just by default do that and use PatchWrite or a similar. There's quite a few others out there as well that might be worth trying, depending on what your preferences are and what site you're scraping. And if you have got experience getting the CamoFox one connected with the WebSocket, please let me know, because I've been struggling a little bit with that. So yeah, that's going to do it for this one. Really appreciate everyone coming and hanging out. It was very fun. We do this every week, same time, same place, probably more places coming up as well. But yeah, thank you very much for watching, everybody, and this recording will be up on our YouTube, so make sure you go over there and check that out and join the community, all that stuff. So thank you very much, everyone, and see you again later.